All right. So, how's everyone doing today? I want to talk about a very popular question that I constantly get asked, and that is, should I look for a job? Should I look for a job with the recession going on? Let me take a step back and talk about why, what is the cause for this recession? Here's what happened. The pandemic happened. Things got heated in terms of the economy, lots of people purchasing things, especially online. And because of that, the prices went up. So I'm not sure about you, but when the pandemic was going on, I was making a lot of purchases on Amazon. I was on Facebook a lot. I was on Instagram. So obviously, our tech consumption went up during the pandemic. And what happened was a lot of the tech giants like Facebook and Amazon anticipated a constant upward consumption and therefore decided to hire a whole bunch of people because they were doing very well. And then things got back to normal, sort of. And because of that, people were going out. People were not always on Amazon buying things. And so there was a decline in consumption. And of course, when you don't have use for people and you can't keep them busy, this is when layoffs happen. So it's not as bad as people think. And the government decided to increase the basically interest rate in order to ensure that prices don't keep going up, because that can cause an inflation and that can be very dangerous. So that is basically the gist of why the recession is happening and why there are all these massive layoffs across companies like Facebook, Instagram, Amazon, even Stripe. If you think about it, during the pandemic, there were a lot of people starting their own business. And a lot of small businesses, I can tell you this because I use Stripe. So think about it. You have this huge influx of businesses going into the market. Of course, to keep with the demands, Stripe had to hire a whole bunch of people, but now things are stable because things are going back to normal. So, what does that mean for you as a job seeker? Does it mean that you're not going to be able to get a job? Does it mean that you should stay at a job that you hate because of this trend in layoffs? Not really, because there will be a lot of companies that are emerging right now and a lot of openings at companies that are trying to steal top talent from companies like Facebook, Amazon, Twitter. And this is a great opportunity for you. It's actually a great opportunity at this time because what it means is that we're going to have businesses that start competing with these giants. That means there's going to be a lot of options. That means we're going to have more wonderful cultures. So it is honestly a great opportunity for people. While it is extremely, extremely disheartening for those who got laid off, I think in life, sometimes things happen for a reason. And I always tell people to look at the opportunities that these things that happen in our life create. At large companies, sometimes there are a lot of inefficiencies. And even though we talk a lot about how Google and Amazon have these exemplary cultures, we also have to understand that at large organizations, sometimes there's red tape. Sometimes the changes are not very nimble. And sometimes, and I'll tell you this from my experience, when I was at Deloitte, for example, and large companies, it's easy to hide. It's easy to hide in a large company. So the underperformers are not noticed easily. They can get away with underperforming. But when you have things like the recession, it actually exposes problems at an organization that's not necessarily doing well. If you look at the news and the media and study a little bit more about what's going on with Meta, I mean, there have been problems with Meta, boiling up within the organization. There was a lot of experimentation going on with new projects that didn't do very well. And this has caused the company to spend a lot of money and not get a return on their investment. Basically, a lot of decisions that may not have been the best decisions, which got amplified because of the recession and caused those layoffs. So, my advice is to definitely keep yourself competitive. You're not going to lose anything if you work on your resume, if you work on your branding, if you shop around. You don't have to take any offer. I'm not saying that you should quit your job and, you know, basically be out of a job when you don't have something on the table, right? But always keep yourself competitive, because no matter how secure you think your job is, it can happen. Businesses can fail, just like how human beings can fail. A business can fail, no matter how big the business is. So, my advice is to keep yourself competitive in this market. Um, when has the market ever been extremely favorable towards the job seeker? Even when the great resignation was going on, man, there was a lot of competition. Everyone was trying to leave their job and look for a new job. Competition, layoffs, a lot of people losing their job, competition. Through the ups and downs, there's always going to be competition. And the best thing to do is to be agile and to be prepared. Always invest in upskilling, always invest in learning, and always invest in working on your soft skills, not just your hard skills. A lot of people who get on calls with me talk about certifications, talk about how they need to work on their hard skills. That's good. That's definitely good. But you got to understand that in a workplace, 80% of what we do is based on human interaction. You're not a machine. You're talking to people all the time. You're going to meetings, especially for roles like product manager or scrum master or designer. Their communication is extremely important. And if you're not a great communicator, it doesn't matter how good you are creating these spreadsheets or mock-ups. If you're not able to portray your ideas concisely, then you're not going to be successful. The other element that people undervalue is likability. People need to like you. So you need to work on your ability to connect with people. How do you do that? You do that through networking. You do that through exercising the muscle of reaching out to people, going out of your comfort zone, going for a coffee with a colleague. If you're working remotely, having a virtual coffee with them. So those are just small things that you could do in order to remain competitive. I have a wonderful community in my program, and what the community does is it actually simulates the real world. I set up my community in order to simulate the real world. And I get people to interact with each other, to network with each other. I put people in breakout rooms, they learn from each other. And that is extremely important. Building those relationships and finding people who are like minded, finding cultures that are like minded. You want to always surround yourself with people who are a little bit ahead of you so that you can learn from them. And you can also surround yourself with a number of people who may not be ahead of you so that you can also mentor them, because that's also an important skill to have. The other thing that you want to do is really practice your storytelling, because storytelling is something that I personally saw skyrocket my business. I myself went through a career transition as a career coach, and I found that when I got really good at telling my story, that's when I started getting invited as a speaker at events like Scrum Alliance, at podcasts. Because at the end of the day, people want to be entertained, including interviews. People want to be entertained. They don't want to listen to someone who's boring them to death. They want to be entertained. When you're delivering a presentation, when you're facilitating a session with stakeholders, if the way you communicate puts people to sleep, then they're not going to listen to you. And that's the key. So people ask me, oh my God, there's a recession going on. What should I do? Should I just give up? Should I be passive? Absolutely not. This is the time when you should be on top of your game. Because if your company is at risk, they're going to get rid of all of the fat and they're going to keep it to the meat. And you want to be that meat for the organization. You need to be flexible about being cross-functional, meaning you are flexible to trying different things and wearing multiple hats. You want to build great relationships with leadership and your team, because if your boss and your team empathizes with you, the likelihood of them actually laying you off is going to be a lot slimmer. And you also want to keep your options open, as in be really good at communicating what you do, not just internally, but also externally, without using too much lingo that's internal to the organization. So someone from the outside can have a clear understanding of what you do. All right. Well, I hope that this has been helpful. And, I would love it if you comment and let me know if there are certain topics or questions that you may have so that I can cover them. And I will be having more of these live sessions every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern.